Hey guys. Tonight, we drift under a velvet desert sky. The kind of sky so wide it almost swallows you, freckled with stars that shimmer like a handful of salt scattered over black silk. You're walking through a market that never really sleeps. Lanterns swaying gently overhead, casting warm gold onto rows of carpets, pyramids of spices, and glinting brass trays. The air is thick with cardamom and grilled lamb, the scent weaving through the dust that clings to your tongue. Somewhere, a lute twangs lazily, half in tune, half not. But no one seems to care. They're too busy haggling over silk, dates, or the latest batch of supposedly miraculous scorpion oil. You probably won't survive this if you're prone to impulse shopping. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening right now, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when these journeys find you. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drift deeper into the souk, the crowd pressing in on all sides, voices blending into a constant hum. Every so often, you catch fragments of conversation that snag in your mind. One merchant swears the salt he's selling comes from the tears of a weeping mountain. Another insists the dates in his stall were ripened under the gaze of a comet. But then, just for a moment, you hear something quieter, heavier. Two men in wool cloaks stand in the shadow of a pottery stall, talking low, their words almost swallowed by the market's chatter. "No, still holds the lamp," one says. His accent is thick, his voice gravelly. "It's cursed," the other replies, almost reflexively. "Why else would no one touch it for 300 years? You try to move on, but the words, "the lamp," seem to root in your thoughts. You've read about such things in the footnotes of history books. The notion that powerful Djinn, beings of smokeless fire, could be bound into objects. One actual historical record from the Abbasid era describes an incident in which a merchant claimed to own a vessel filled with wind that whispers names at night. Scholars still argue whether it was a poetic exaggeration or a literal reference to a trapped spirit. Either way, the image is hard to shake. You keep walking, but the market seems to lean you in one direction. A narrow alley yawns between a leather seller's tent and a stall piled high with copper kettles. The passage is dim, smelling of damp earth and something faintly metallic. Every few steps, the noise of the market recedes until it's a faint, far-off murmur. You pass crates of cracked amphorae, broken bits of tile with faded blue glaze, and a half-collapsed stack of rolled-up rugs. There's an odd sensation here, as if the air is thicker, heavier. You remember reading that in medieval Arabia. Some believed cursed objects changed the weight of the air around them. One 13th century scholar claimed you could detect a haunted artifact by holding a bird near it and seeing if the bird grew still. Historians still argue whether that was an observation of actual superstition or a metaphor for tense silence. And then you see him. Not the Djinn. No, not yet. But an old man hunched over a crate, his back curved like a question mark. His robe is the color of wet sand, frayed at the edges. He notices you and smiles, revealing teeth the shade of ivory that's seen centuries. "You're looking for something," he says. "It's not a question. Not really. More like a statement of fact. You don't answer." The air feels too thick for words. He gestures with a trembling hand toward the far corner. There, half buried under a sack of dust-covered dates. You see the curve of something brass, dull and darkened with age, but with just enough gleam to catch the lantern light. "The lamp!" you hear yourself say. The man's smile deepens, but it's not friendly. The lamp finds you, not the other way around. You step closer, crouching to brush away the layer of grit and dry fruit husks. The lamp is heavy, heavier than it looks, and cold, even in the warm desert air. It smells faintly of old oil and something stranger, like ozone before a lightning strike. The old man watches you pick it up. 3 others tried, he says. Only 1 returned. You're about to ask what happened to the other 2. But you realize you don't actually want the answer. Instead, you just nod and slip the lamp into your satchel, feeling its weight thump against your hip. Somewhere far above, a thin cloud passes over the moon, dimming the light just enough to make the alley feel narrower. When you step back into the main market, the air feels different. The noise of the crowd seems sharper, more jagged, like every laugh and shout has an edge to it. You glance around, half expecting to see the old man following you, but he's gone, as if he'd never been there. That's when you notice your hand. Even though you're holding nothing now, your palm is faintly warm, like the lamp's metal has left an imprint of heat in your skin. You tell yourself it's nothing, just nerves, just the market's strange energy. But the weight in your satchel feels awake. You weave your way out of the market, the smells of cumin and smoke fading into the cooler air beyond the lantern-lit stalls. The street narrows until the stone walls on either side press in like bookends, the sound of your own footsteps bouncing back at you. The lamp thumps softly against your hip in your satchel, every step a reminder of its presence. You keep telling yourself you'll just take it home, give it a quick polish, and maybe sell it to some overeager collector of curiosities. But deep down, you know you won't. Past the last shop, the alley opens into a small courtyard where a lone fig tree leans over an abandoned fountain. Its basin is cracked and dry, lined with sand and a scattering of withered leaves. A stray cat, ribs showing through its fur, watches you from the shadow of a doorway. For some reason, you feel judged. You find an empty bench and pull the lamp from your satchel. In the moonlight, it's even more unimpressive. Dull brass, a bent spout, the kind of object that would blend into any flea market table. Yet there's something about it that pulls at the corner of your mind, the way an unfinished sentence keeps you awake at night. You recall a tidbit from a dusty book you once skimmed, an old Islamic historian writing about objects that remember their owners. According to him, certain enchanted vessels could carry the memories of the last person who touched them. Historians still argue whether this was a metaphor for family heirlooms or a literal warning about cursed possessions. Either way, the thought makes you hesitate before you touch the thing again. The surface feels gritty, as if dust has fused to the metal over centuries. You rub your thumb along one side, and the grime comes away in flakes. Beneath, there's a faint pattern, worn lines forming shapes that might be script or just random scratches. The markings seem to ripple faintly in the moonlight, like heat haze. A breeze stirs, bringing with it the faint scent of something burning, oil, maybe, or resin. You look around the courtyard, but the air is still, the windows dark. The cat is gone. The only thing left is the sound of your own breathing and the faint, steady hum in your ears. You tell yourself it's just the wind, or your imagination. But then you remember a story your grandmother used to tell about a village that found an old amphora buried in the sand. They cracked it open to find a strange mist inside. Some swore it was just smoke trapped for centuries. Others swore it whispered in a language no one recognized. The next day, every person in the village had left without a word, their belongings still neatly arranged. To this day, no one knows where they went. Your fingers trace the curved handle of the lamp, feeling the indentation where countless other hands might have gripped it. This isn't the kind of artifact you find in tourist stalls. It's the kind you stumble on in the margins of history, wedged between the things museums display and the things they lock in vaults without explanation. Another odd thing: the metal is cold. Not just cool from the night air, but the kind of deep cold you feel in your bones, like winter water. A fact bubbles up from somewhere in your memory. In pre-Islamic folklore, objects that were home to Djinn were often described as unnaturally cold, even in the heat of the desert. Some scholars today dismiss it as symbolic language. Others insist it was a literal observation from people who had encounters. The hum in your ears deepens, turning almost into a vibration under your skin. The thought creeps in. What if you're not holding the lamp? What if the lamp is holding you? You decide, perhaps unwisely, to carry it somewhere less public. Your rented room is not far, a narrow place above a tea shop, where the scent of mint and cardamom clings to the walls. You make your way there quickly, glancing over your shoulder every few steps. Inside, you set the lamp on the low wooden table by the bed. The room is dim except for a single candle guttering in the corner. You stare at the lamp. It stares back, or it would, if brass could stare. You notice something you hadn't before. Along the seam where the spout meets the body, there's a thin line of residue, dark and sticky. You lean closer, half expecting it to smell rancid, but instead there's a sharp, almost medicinal scent, like frankincense mixed with rain on hot stone. You've read about ancient oils used in rituals to seal enchanted objects. A few fringe researchers have even claimed that such oils could imprison non-human entities, though historians still argue whether these accounts were allegory or genuine field reports from people who really believed in binding spells. Your hand hovers over the lamp, fingers itching to wipe it clean. That's when the candle flickers. Not the casual flutter of a draft, but a sudden, sharp lurch to the side, as if the air itself shifted. The flame bends almost horizontal for a moment, then straightens. The hum is now unmistakable, a low, steady vibration that you feel in the soles of your feet. You lean back in your chair, heart thudding. Somewhere outside, the wind picks up, rattling the shutters. But the breeze feels wrong, like it's not coming from the window at all, but from inside the room, seeping out of the lamp. The flame dances again, and for the briefest second, you think you see something in it. A shape, long and twisting, like smoke underwater. You look back at the lamp, and the pattern under the grime seems clearer now, like script half-formed and waiting for you to finish it. The temptation to clean it entirely is overwhelming. Your fingers close around the handle. The brass is slicker now, as if the thin film of grime has turned to oil under your touch. Your thumb sweeps across the side in slow, deliberate arcs, pushing away centuries of dust. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a rational voice says you're just cleaning an antique, but the rest of you knows better. The markings beneath the dirt are no longer random scratches. They're curling letters, a script you don't recognize. They bend and loop like smoke caught in midair. You've seen Kufic calligraphy before, the geometric kind used in early Quranic manuscripts, but this is different, organic, almost alive. Each stroke seems to shimmer faintly, like light on rippling water. You rub harder, and that's when the sound starts, not from outside, not from your ears exactly, but somewhere inside your skull. A whisper, drawn out and indistinct. It doesn't sound like any language you know, yet the tone is unmistakable, impatient. The candle sputters. Shadows on the walls stretch unnaturally long, pooling in the corners. The hum you felt earlier deepens into a thrumming beat, almost like a slow drum. You hesitate, but it's already too late. Your palm slides over the belly of the lamp in one final swipe, revealing the metal beneath in a streak of warm gold. For a fraction of a second, the room stills. The air, the shadows, even your own heartbeat. Then it bursts open. It's not like in the movies. There's no neat puff of smoke or theatrical whoosh. Instead, it's as if the very air unravels, threads of heat and shadow twisting together in the space before you. The scent of frankincense surges so strong it burns your throat. Something long and coiling pushes out of the spout. Not smoke, but a fluid shimmer, the way heat rises off sand at midday. The shimmer gathers height, folding into itself, shaping limbs, a torso, a head. The figure solidifies in fragments, skin like hammered bronze, eyes lit from within like banked embers, robes of pale, shifting cloth that ripple without wind. The voice is low, resonant, and far too close. It has been a long time. You swallow. Your mouth feels dry, as if the desert has taken root inside you. "You're a djinn," it says, almost bored. Bound by pact, imprisoned by craft, and now awakened by your hand. There's a pause, and then a flicker of something unreadable in its expression. Amusement, maybe, or hunger. Do you know what that means? Some part of you wants to joke, to say, "Yeah, 3 wishes, right?" But you hold your tongue. You remember one of the stranger footnotes from a medieval travel account by Ibn Battuta. He claimed that the most dangerous jinn were the ones who agreed too easily. Historians still argue whether that was a warning against arrogance or simply a storyteller's flair. The jinn tilts its head, studying you as if measuring your worth. 3 boons, it says finally. Gifts to shape the world to your will, but... Its mouth curves into something between a smile and a sneer. Every choice casts a shadow. You exhale slowly, trying to keep your voice steady. And if I don't choose, the jinn shrugs. Then you carry me until the end of your days. Some found that preferable. Few lasted long. You're aware of how still the room has become. Even the rattle of the shutters has stopped. The night outside feels distant, as if you're suspended somewhere between here and not here. The jinn steps forward, or seems to. Its feet never touch the floor, yet each movement shortens the space between you. The candlelight bends toward it, as if drawn. The first boon, it says, can be anything you desire. You almost laugh, because it's such a ridiculous offer. And yet the words make your skin prickle. Anything. The human brain isn't built for that kind of choice. You think of 100 things at once: wealth, power, knowledge, safety, and discard them all just as quickly. Every wish you can imagine has an aftertaste. You remember another odd historical tidbit. This one from a 10th century manuscript preserved in a private collection. The scribe described a man who wished for water enough to last his family forever. The wish came true. His home was flooded until the sea swallowed it whole. That, the scribe noted, was why one must ask with the precision of an arrow. The jinn watches you, unblinking. "Do not fear to speak," it murmurs. Time here moves differently. Outside, the candle burns. Inside, we have all the moments you require. It's tempting to test that. You glance at the candle. It's frozen mid-flicker, flame curved like a still photograph. A joke bubbles up unbidden. So, I could, technically, think about this for 10 years and not age a day? The jinn's smile deepens, and for a heartbeat you're sure its teeth are sharper than before. Technically, but you know better. Time may not move here, but consequences certainly do. Your fingers tighten around the armrest of the chair. The air is warm now, as if the whole room has shifted closer to the equator. Choose. the Djinn says again. Not loudly, just with enough weight that the word settles into your bones. You take a breath, your lips part, and the shadows behind the Djinn move. They move in a way shadows shouldn't, stretching upward instead of across the floor, curling like smoke but without dispersing. For a moment, you think it's some trick of the candlelight, but then you remember the candle hasn't moved at all. Its frozen flame still leans mid-flicker. Caught in that strange between time the Djinn has wrapped around you. The shifting darkness coils behind it, forming vague shapes, faces that never quite finish forming, eyes that open and close without lids, mouths whispering words you can almost hear. The Djinn doesn't look back, but its shoulders lift slightly, as if aware of your attention. Do not be distracted, it says, still facing you. The first boon waits. You're distracted anyway. One of the shadow shapes stretches closer, its edges bleeding into the Djinn's robe. The sight triggers a dim memory from a folktale you heard years ago, about the ghoul, desert spirits that follow stronger entities like scavengers trailing a lion. Historians still argue whether these were ever meant to be distinct from Djinn, or simply different forms they could take. Either way, the storyteller in that tale claimed the ghoul fed not on flesh, but on regret, which, if you're about to make a wish, is not comforting. The Djinn's expression doesn't change, but the air shifts, denser now, like the moment before a summer storm. The bargain is simple, it says. Name your desire, and I will grant it. Name nothing, and I will wait until you do. You try to think logically. 3 wishes, infinite possibilities. This is where people in stories go wrong. Wishing for gold and finding it stolen. Wishing for love and finding it hollow. You imagine saying something clever like, I wish for my wishes to be safe. But you're almost certain the Djinn would find a loophole. A more cautious idea forms. Tell me, you say slowly, what others have wished for. The Djinn tilts its head. For the first time, its smile fades. Curiosity, it murmurs. Interesting choice. It takes a step or glides closer. The shadows behind it swell like a wave. It doesn't speak in sentences at first. Instead, flashes of images burst in your mind. A man in silk robes, standing atop a mountain of gold coins. Then the same man drowning under an avalanche of them. A woman holding a newborn, her face lit with joy. Then her expression collapsing into horror as the child grows unnaturally fast, aging years in moments. A scribe at a desk, his ink flowing endlessly. The words spilling from him like water, until his own skin begins to bear the script. You blink hard, shaking the visions away. So, there's always a cost. The Djinn's smile returns. Faint but deliberate. Everything costs something, even nothing. You want to press further. But another thought worms in. What if the first wish is the most dangerous? What if each one digs you deeper into a bargain you don't fully understand? There's a theory you read once in a fringe folklore journal. The first wish binds the wisher to the Djinn's fate. The second begins the transformation, and the third ends it. Scholars still argue whether this was meant as a warning against greed, or a veiled description of some ancient initiation ritual. The Djinn leans in slightly. You notice that, despite its shape, it casts no shadow of its own. You have lingered long enough, it says, though its tone remains calm. Speak your boon. You almost laugh again, partly from nerves. What if I wish to understand you? Something flickers in its eyes. Interest, perhaps, or calculation. Dangerous, it says softly. Understanding is the sharpest blade. The shadows seem to tense, their edges bristling. One of them slithers forward until it touches your chair. The wood beneath your hand feels colder. Your instinct screams to break the tension with a joke. Guess that's a no, then? The Djinn's lips curl. I did not say no. The words hang between you, heavy and electric. You could take that offer, wish to understand, and risk seeing the full truth of whatever this being is, or you could play it safer. Ask for something simple, though you doubt anything stays simple in here. Your gaze drifts to the lamp, still resting on the table. For a heartbeat, you imagine putting it back, sliding it into your satchel, carrying it out into the cool night, and pretending this never happened. But you know the Djinn would follow. Maybe not in sight, but in thought, in dreams. The candle's flame twitches just slightly, as if impatient to resume its motion. Enough, the Djinn says finally. The moment bends too far. Speak, or I choose for you. The air tastes like metal now, and the room seems smaller. You feel the choice solidifying in your throat, your lips part, and the shadows surge forward. The shadows swirl, twisting and writhing like smoke caught in a sudden gust. You blink, but when your eyes reopen, the room has vanished. Instead, you stand on a barren plain beneath a blood-red sky. The horizon blurs with heat, shimmer, and distant mountains crumble like ancient ruins. The Djinn's voice echoes around you, not from a single direction, but all at once, surrounding you like the desert wind. Behold the kingdoms of old, where my power once danced among mortal rulers. It intones, the landscape shifts, and you find yourself swept through scenes of forgotten cities, palaces draped in gold, bazaars teeming with life, minarets reaching for the heavens. You glimpse the courtyards where kings met with scholars, the gardens where poets whispered verses under date palms. These places shimmer with a fragile beauty, caught between memory and myth. You recall reading that the Arabian Peninsula once housed some of the most prosperous trading hubs of the ancient world. Like Palmyra and Petra, merchants traveled vast desert routes, exchanging spices, silks, and stories. Historians still argue whether these cities' grandeur was due more to commerce or to the mystical reputation of the desert itself. The Djinn's presence is palpable, as if you're walking alongside a force that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires. It guides you through the echoes of vanished lives, showing you treasures turned to dust and dreams burned away by time. Then the vision shifts again. You see a caravan halted by a starry oasis, its waters shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The Djinn leans closer, voice lowering to a murmur. Many sought to harness my power, it says, but few understood the cost. Suddenly, the oasis ripples, revealing faces trapped beneath its surface, travelers frozen in moments of joy, fear, regret. You remember an obscure tale of a desert mirage that trapped souls, leaving their bodies as empty shells. Some scholars consider it an allegory for the dangers of desire, while others believe it's a literal warning passed down from nomadic tribes. The Djinn's eyes flicker with something like sorrow. I have been bound, yes, but also betrayed. The lamp is my prison and my curse. You feel the weight of centuries pressing down, the stories of lives intertwined with this being's fate. It's not just a creature of magic, but a witness to human ambition, folly, and hope. As the vision fades, you find yourself back in your room, the lamp glowing faintly in the candlelight. The shadows have receded, but the Djinn's words linger. Remember, it says softly, history is written not just by kings, but by those who dare to wish. You blink, and suddenly the room is gone again, replaced by a dusty caravan camp beneath a starlit sky. Around a flickering fire, a group of scholars and travelers argue with passion, their voices carrying into the cool desert night. The Djinn's presence lingers in the air, silent but palpable, as if it's listening too. The men debate loudly, gesturing toward ancient scrolls and worn manuscripts laid out on a low table. One scholar insists that Djinn were servants of Solomon, bound by divine command to carry out his will. Another counters that these spirits were wild, untamable forces, tricksters who defied even kings. The tension between faith and folklore hangs thick in the air. You remember that the figure of Solomon features heavily in Middle Eastern lore, often credited with controlling Djinn through magical rings or sacred texts. Historians still argue whether these tales reflect real religious practices or later myth-making. The fire crackles, casting dancing shadows on the scholars' faces as they debate whether Djinn were protectors, punishers, or merely misunderstood spirits. You listen, intrigued by how deeply these stories have woven themselves into human culture, shifting meaning with each retelling. Suddenly, a soft sigh ripples through the camp. The Djinn's voice, barely more than a whisper, fills your mind. The truth lies tangled in belief and fear. You catch a glimpse of a dusty tome, its pages yellowed and frayed. The text describes an ancient ritual said to summon and bind Djinn, involving oil lamps, sacred verses, and complex sigils. The exact origins of this practice remain uncertain, lost in layers of oral tradition and secret knowledge. As the scholars' voices fade into the night, you feel the weight of centuries of debate pressing down on you, reminding you that understanding the Djinn is as much about interpreting human fears and hopes as it is about uncovering any objective truth. The fire dims, the camp dissolves, and you find yourself once again facing the lamp in your quiet room. The Djinn's presence feels closer now, expectant. You settle back into your chair, the lamp resting heavily on the table before you. Your mind races, still caught between disbelief and fascination. You consider making your first wish, after all. 3 chances at anything you desire sounds like a dream come true. But stories of wishes gone sideways rush in like a flood. You recall a tale from the medieval Arabian Nights, where a man wished for endless wealth, only to find his home buried beneath mountains of gold, unable to escape. Such stories served as cautionary tales, reminding listeners that desires, if not carefully phrased, could spiral into unexpected consequences. Historians still debate whether these stories originated as moral lessons or recorded actual experiences framed as folklore. Your fingers twitch, itching to speak your wish aloud, but caution stops you. You know the Djinn's warning. Every choice casts a shadow. You try to craft a wish that's clear, precise, and safe, but language, slippery as desert sand, resists your control. You decide to test the waters with a small request. "I wish for a cup of water?" The Djinn's eyes gleam softly. In an instant, a silver cup materializes on the table, filled to the brim with crystal-clear water. Relief floods you, but it's short-lived. As you reach out, the cup trembles, and the water ripples unnaturally, as if stirred by an unseen hand. You drink cautiously, and for a moment, everything feels normal. Then the room shifts subtly. The air thickens, your vision sharpens, and a low hum fills the space. The Djinn's voice breaks the silence. Even the simplest wish carries consequences. You blink, and suddenly, your surroundings pulse with an energy that's both exhilarating and unsettling. You realize that this isn't just a game. The wishes are threads weaving your fate with the Djinn's own ancient story. The first wish, small though it seemed, has opened a door. Beyond it lies a labyrinth of choices, shadows, and echoes of old magic. You're standing at the edge, and there's no turning back. You rise from your chair, the cup of water still shimmering faintly on the table. The room around you seems to dissolve, replaced by an endless desert horizon shimmering with heat. You find yourself at an oasis unlike any other. Lush palms sway, and water sparkles with an unnatural glow, reflecting the starlit sky above. Yet, beneath the beauty lies a strange tension, a whisper of something not quite real. The air tastes sweet and sharp at once, carrying scents of jasmine and something metallic, like rain on iron. The Djinn's laughter drifts through the breeze, a soft, teasing sound that seems to ripple the very fabric of the oasis. You step toward the water's edge, but the reflection distorts. Your face flickers and changes, revealing glimpses of someone else, someone ancient and unknowable. You recall tales from Bedouin tribes of mirages that trap unwary travelers, illusions crafted by spirits to lure them away from safety. Some say these oases were gates between worlds, places where reality bent and time stretched thin. Historians still debate whether such stories were warnings born of survival or genuine encounters with the supernatural. As you drink from the oasis, the world shimmers again. Trees ripple, leaves turn to smoke, and the ground beneath you softens like sand shifting underfoot. The Djinn's voice swirls around you. Not all that appears is what it seems. Reality here is but a veil, fragile and deceiving. You feel the illusion's pull, a dizzying dance between desire and doubt. The oasis promises refreshment and respite, but also a trap for the unwary. You wonder if your first wish unleashed more than just water. It has opened your senses to layers of the world you never knew existed. The cat from before appears at your feet, eyes glowing faintly. It brushes against your leg, purring a low rumble that feels like a heartbeat. You recall the old man's warning. The lamp finds you, not the other way around. The oasis fades, the desert night returns, and the lamp's quiet hum fills the space. You realize that in this place of shifting shadows and promises, trust is as scarce as water. You find yourself suddenly transported to a bustling midnight bazaar, alive with flickering lanterns and vibrant colors bleeding into the dark. The air buzzes with murmurs and laughter, punctuated by the sharp clang of metal and the soft clink of coins. The stalls here don't sell spices or silk, but objects that seem plucked from dreams or nightmares. Bottles filled with shimmering sands, mirrors that show impossible reflections, and amulets humming with hidden power. You weave through the crowd, the scent of roasted nuts mingling with something faintly electric, like ozone before a storm. A vendor in a cobalt turban beckons you over, offering a small box carved with runes that glow faintly in the lantern light. For those who seek to change fate, he whispers, eyes glittering. You recall an obscure folktale about a market that only appears under the new moon, where souls trade memories and futures. Some claim the market's goods are cursed, others say they grant impossible wishes, but the price is always more than what you see. Scholars debate whether this market was ever real or just a metaphor for temptation and consequence. You finger the box, feeling the hum of power beneath your skin. It's heavier than it looks, and as you hold it, shadows seem to ripple from its edges. A chill runs down your spine, and you remember the Djinn's warning. Every choice casts a shadow. From the crowd, you glimpse a figure cloaked in shifting fabrics, eyes glowing faintly from beneath a hood. They watch you silently, a knowing smile touching their lips. You realize the bazaar is not just a place of trade, but a crossroads of fate, where every bargain reshapes the tapestry of possibility. The Djinn's voice murmurs in your mind, What will you give for what you desire? The lanterns flicker. The crowd's murmur swells, and the box pulses softly in your hand. A heartbeat of power and peril as the midnight bazaar fades. You find yourself once again alone in the quiet of your room. The lamp rests on the table, glowing softly like a heartbeat. The Djinn's presence feels heavier now, as if carrying the weight of something long forgotten. You realize it's not just a spirit bound by magic, but a being tethered to an ancient promise, a debt it cannot escape. You remember a story whispered among desert tribes of a Djinn who served a powerful sorcerer, bound by a pact to protect a sacred secret. When the sorcerer betrayed the Djinn, trapping it within a lamp, the Djinn vowed revenge, but also carried a lingering loyalty that kept it from total freedom. Historians still argue whether such pacts were metaphors for social contracts or records of early mystical beliefs. The Djinn's voice breaks the silence. Softer now, tinged with a melancholy you hadn't heard before. I am chained by oath and bound by time. My freedom is your burden. You wonder what that means for you. Are you now part of this ancient contract? Is your fate intertwined with the Djinn's? The lamp seems heavier in your hands, its glow pulsing in rhythm with your heartbeat. A sudden whisper trails from the shadows, voices echoing in your mind, echoes of those who once sought the lamp, some lost, others transformed. You sense the stories of their wishes, their regrets, and the price they paid. The weight of the Djinn's forgotten debt presses down, a reminder that every bargain is a story waiting to unfold. You realize that freeing the Djinn might mean unraveling centuries of magic and history, and perhaps rewriting your own destiny. Outside, the desert night is silent, but inside, the lamp hums with possibility and peril. The second wish weighs heavy on your mind as you sit in the dim light. The lamp's glow steady but ominous. You hesitate, knowing that each choice you make ripples beyond the immediate, stretching into realms you can barely imagine. The Djinn watches you, patient but expectant, as if it's waiting for you to seal a fate neither of you can escape. You recall an old tale of a man who wished for endless knowledge. At first, he rejoiced, understanding languages, reading hidden truths, and seeing the past and future unfold. But soon, the burden overwhelmed him. Every secret became a curse, every revelation a torment. His mind fractured under the weight, leaving him a hollow shell. Scholars still argue whether this story is a warning about hubris or a metaphor for the human thirst for control. With a deep breath, you decide to risk another wish. One more cautious but no less significant. You voice your desire, clear and measured, hoping the words will hold steady. The Djinn's eyes gleam, and the air ripples with energy as the wish unfolds. But the consequences spread like a slow tide, unseen yet undeniable. Small changes ripple outward. A stranger smiles unexpectedly. A door opens where none existed before. A forgotten memory resurfaces with startling clarity. The world around you begins to feel less stable, as if reality itself is bending and twisting to accommodate your choice. The Djinn's voice is quiet, almost reflective. The second boon shapes the journey, but it also alters the path. You walk a road that no one else can see. You feel the weight of your decision pressing on you, knowing that every step forward is entangled with threads of magic and fate. The room seems to pulse with the echoes of your wish, and the lamp's glow flickers like a heartbeat in the dark. The room fades again, and you find yourself walking through a dense, ancient forest that stretches endlessly beneath a sky dappled with stars. The scent of pine and damp earth fills the air, mingling with a faint, almost imperceptible trace of smoke. The Djinn walks beside you, its form shimmering like a mirage, its presence both comforting and unsettling. You notice strange symbols carved into the bark of the towering trees, sigils of protection and binding, some worn by time, others freshly etched. These marks remind you of ancient talismans used across cultures to ward off spirits or bind otherworldly beings. Historians still debate whether these practices were practical protective measures or symbolic gestures born of fear. As you follow a narrow path, the Djinn speaks softly, recounting tales of those who tried to master its power. One story tells of a scholar who sought to bind the Djinn's essence into a talisman, hoping to wield its magic without risk. Instead, the talisman absorbed the scholar's life force, turning him into a mere shadow of himself. The scholar's fate serves as a grim reminder. Power extracted from the Djinn is never without cost. The forest grows quieter. The only sounds your footsteps and the faint rustling of leaves. Suddenly, the path opens onto a clearing where an ancient stone altar stands, covered in moss and faded carvings. The Djinn gestures toward it, explaining that many rituals involving lamps and binding were conducted in places like this, thresholds between worlds. You feel a chill run down your spine as you consider the delicate balance between freedom and bondage, light and shadow. The Djinn's voice lowers to a whisper. The third wish ends the tale, but it also begins another. The moonlight filters through the canopy, casting silver patterns on the altar. You sense that the journey is nearing its close, but the final choice looms larger than ever. You stand before the ancient altar, the weight of the Djinn's words settling over you like a desert dusk. The lamp's glow pulses softly on the stone, as if breathing alongside you. The third wish, the final thread in this tapestry of fate, awaits your voice. The room feels smaller, more intimate, every shadow and light amplified by the gravity of your choice. You think back to a legend whispered among the desert tribes, a Djinn who was granted freedom, but bound by a curse that tethered its soul to the one who freed it. The curse was a double-edged sword, offering liberation, yet demanding eternal connection. Scholars still argue whether such tales were allegorical warnings or true accounts of ancient pacts. The Djinn's eyes hold a mixture of hope and resignation. This is the moment where destiny bends. It murmurs, "Speak your wish and seal your fate." You hesitate, heart pounding. The power to alter reality sits on your tongue, but the risk shadows every syllable. You weigh the desire for freedom against the fear of unknown consequences. As you open your mouth to speak, a sudden breeze stirs the room. The candle's flame flickers for the first time in what feels like hours, casting wavering light across the walls. The shadows shift, no longer menacing but gentle, as if the very air breathes with anticipation. You find clarity in the stillness. Your final wish is not for power, wealth, or knowledge, but for balance. A wish to undo the bindings, to release the Djinn without doom, to rewrite the ancient pact with mercy and understanding. The Djinn's form shimmers, a smile touching its lips. "A rare choice," it says softly. "May your heart be as wise as your words." The lamp glows brighter, then fades into a soft, warm light. The shadows dissolve, and the room fills with a peaceful hush. You exhale, feeling the weight lift. The journey has changed you, and in this quiet moment, the bond between mortal and Djinn feels less like a chain and more like a shared story. The warm glow from the lamp fills the room, casting a gentle light that feels almost alive. The Djinn's presence shifts, becoming less a looming force and more a quiet companion. You realize the ancient magic woven into the lamp has softened, responding to your final wish with a tenderness unexpected in stories of spirits and curses. You recall a rare historical account from Andalusian scholars who believed that Djinn, when treated with respect and understanding, could become guardians rather than threats. They described a balance of power and harmony, a dance between human intent and spirit will. Historians still debate whether these beliefs were widespread or isolated mystic traditions. The Djinn speaks softly, its voice like a breeze through palm fronds. You have chosen a path few dare to walk. The ties between us are changed, not broken. You feel a shift inside you, a calm settling over nerves once taut with tension. The lamp's glow pulses gently, syncing with your heartbeat, as if you and the Djinn now share a rhythm. Outside your window, the first light of dawn paints the sky in soft pinks and golds. The night's mystery fades but leaves behind a sense of quiet wonder and possibility. You stretch, the weight of the night's journey giving way to peaceful awareness. The Djinn's final words echo in your mind. Every story is a gift, every shadow a lesson, as you prepare to rest. The lamp's light dims slowly, settling into a soft ember glow. The room is still, but the magic lingers. A promise whispered on the dawn breeze. The first rays of morning stretch through your window, bathing the room in a gentle warmth. The lamp, once a source of mystery and tension, now sits quietly on the table, its glow faint but steady, a soft pulse like the last ember of a fire. The Djinn's presence has faded, not vanished, but transformed into a calm companion resting just beyond sight. You feel a deep sense of peace, the kind that settles after a long night of wandering through shadows and stories. The journey you undertook has changed you, weaving new threads into your understanding of desire, power, and consequence. The ancient tales are no longer distant myths, but living echoes in your mind. You remember the many stories told under desert stars of Djinn who were tricksters, protectors, or prisoners, and you realize that none of these roles is fixed. The lines between them blur like the shifting sands, shaped by the choices of those who dare to engage with the unseen. As you rise, the lamp's soft glow follows, a quiet reminder that magic and mystery often lie just beneath the surface of everyday life. The night's experience lingers like a whisper, a secret shared between you and the shadows. Now, as you prepare to drift into sleep, you carry with you the lessons of the Djinn, about wishes made with care, about the balance of freedom and fate, and about the stories that bind us all. Rest easy, knowing that even in the quiet moments, the magic of the night lives on. The room grows quieter now, the edges of your awareness softening like twilight folding into night. The lamp's glow dims gently, fading to a warm, comforting ember that seems to breathe with your own calm rhythm. Outside, the desert night settles into stillness, a vast and quiet expanse that stretches beyond time. You feel your body relax, muscles loosening, mind unwinding from the day's thoughts. The stories you heard of ancient magic, of bound spirits and wishes, linger not as worries, but as gentle reminders of the unseen threads weaving through life. In these quiet moments, the world feels a little larger, a little more mysterious, but also kinder. Breathe slowly, deeply, letting each breath carry you further into rest. Imagine the soft hum of the lamp, the whisper of desert winds, and the quiet gaze of stars overhead. There is peace here, in the stillness and the stories that fade like shadows at dawn. Sleep comes softly now, a gentle tide that carries you into dreams. Rest well, friend, and know that the magic of the night remains with you, whispering secrets in the dark.